All right, this is Treat joining me for the 9th episode of the Shazpod. We have a bunch of really special guests from Team Reddit and Team 4chan. First up is Blinks. Go ahead, tell us what you do.
I'm Blinks. I play defense/chase for Team Reddit. And I think Tribes is pretty cool, and so is this podcast.
Fantastic, thank you. And we also have Utah.
Hi, I am captain of Team 4chan. I primarily play Soldier. I'm in charge of pushing Sandrakers off our world and defeating Reddit.
Excellent tasks. And also joining us is David Bowie.
Hi, I'm the captain of Art Tribe, aka Team Reddit, and I cap flags and try to keep our folks organized.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for coming out today. Figured I'd start this one out just asking a basic question. For those of you who haven't seen the matches before you listen to us, I recommend you go watch the match. I'll have a link to one of Utah's videos that has all of them combined with a very nice intro in the beginning. So let's just start into it. Utah, for the 4chan matches, you guys really turned it around starting in the third game. What was it that you think you guys did to pull it out for yourselves?
Steph's orbitals really turned it around. I remember he had 2 clutch ones on that map, and then I know Scofie Paws had that last second cap that turned it into overtime. So I think that's what really switched it up.
Yeah, I really like the never forget post with the orbital of Seth going off and watching the whole Reddit team melt. So David Bowie, do you think that was, David Bowie and Blinks, I guess, would you say that was pretty accurate? Do you think it was definitely some clutch plays that put it into the 4th map?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Seth's sniping was very solid throughout. Even in the first 2 games, I didn't think the score was indicative of how close they felt. But in that 3rd game, I felt like we had the game pretty well under control. We were up 4-3 with only about a minute left. But then, as that never forget poster, I think, captures perfectly. They were able to land that orbital, which killed, I think, 5 people on our team, which they got the return for the cap because they were basically right there. And then also, before we could respawn, Scofie was able to make the next pickup. So they essentially got 2 caps off of that one orbital. And it went from us thinking we had it in the bag to game over, we lose.
Yeah, I remember in TeamSpeak it was just like everyone going crazy, like, oh my god, Orbital! And then you look at the name, and of course it's Seth, because he's an amazing player.
Yeah, it was actually 2. There was, another strike before the Orbital. So there was 1 tack strike, and everyone jumped out of the way of that one, and then right into the second one, which is an even bigger one.
Seth, definitely going to hear his name a lot, I'm guessing, today. Do you think Seth's sniping was really sort of key to the 4chan defense?
I'm not going to say anything like that, it's just one player was responsible for them winning or anything like that, because they have a lot of talented players in their team. But he was certainly the one that did the most damage to us in terms of making it very difficult for our cappers to return home. I'll go ahead and, I don't mind saying this, recorded. I actually think he's the best player in Tribes Ascend right now as a sniper, at least in North America. Of the snipers I've played against, I fear him more than any other as a capper.
There's something interesting about Seth, Utah. I'm pretty sure he's from Brazil, is that correct?
It is incorrect. He is from Chile.
Still, playing with that lag disadvantage must be something for him.
Yeah, basically he has to line up his shots a little bit behind everyone to hit that hitbox and not the actual body, so it's pretty crazy.
Oh man, so Blinks, playing defense, you play the chase mostly, which is a position I really am fond of. Dry Dock was the 4th match in the game, and I feel is one of the harder maps to chase on. Do you think having that as a 4th map was one of the things that may have hindered the ability for you to chase?
Well, I would agree that chasing on that map is definitely harder than any other map. And lately we've noticed that was a problem with our team, especially in that game against 4chan. So we've been experimenting with having our chase sit on top of the hill over there to spot top to bottom routes, and then be able to chase bottom to top routes. And that seems like it's a little bit more effective than chasing from base, but I absolutely feel like that map hinders my ability as a chaser. you pretty much have to kill the capper on the stand or get him low enough for the sniper to shoot him out. Otherwise, they're just going to cap on you.
And the speed of the caps of those back to fronts, I'm pretty sure I saw at least fairly certain David Bowie and Utah using those back to fronts at some point during the map. Do you feel those are really powerful on Dry Dock? If so, why? What about them?
I feel like those are very powerful with infiltrator capping because you can't necessarily see them coming in and time your shots on a stand and or body block. But more experienced teams, I think the more experienced a team is, the less trouble they're going to have because you're going to see the person, first of all, heading to that cliff, and then when they start their route, you can have eyes on them the whole time from the top of the cliff to the bottom of the cliff. So if the LO is not doing an exceptional job disrupting, I feel like that route is only really viable with Infiltrator.
Yeah, I think that spotting is really important on Dry Dock. Pretty much every route on that map you can see coming from a mile away. So if you have a sniper who's vocal and calling out cappers coming in, he kind of only has to look in a couple different spots and just keep checking them. You should be able to see every capper coming. But if for some reason you don't see that back to front, then yeah, he's going to be home in 12 seconds or whatever, and there's not much you can do about it.
Nice. Another thing that I saw a lot in Dry Dock was a bunch of deployable use from Team 4chan. Utah, did you go into the match expecting to use deployables, or is that something you guys threw out there to try and throw off the groove that Reddit had?
I know Cheesy Dean, he was Doombringer, and then we had Tagudi, who was tech, so I guess they just decided to turtle in.
Certainly seemed to work. I know that Reddit tried to do some heavy offense and even started focusing on the gens. Was that probably one of the detriments that you guys had to pull people away to start focusing on more niche roles?
Yeah, I mean, for us, basically, I was getting frustrated as a capper because there was just always a bunch of deployables and stuff on the stand. So actually went infiltrator for a little bit, and we were just running one capper, and so I was just keeping the gens down. And at the same time, one of our offense went heavy-o and started using that MERV spam on the stand. And once I realized we were kind of duplicating efforts there, I switched back to capping. But there's a while there we only had the one capper and just weren't able to get enough grabs.
Awesome. So instead of just focusing on the matches now, I figured it's time to go into the more metagame discussions. The new patches have come out, and there's just a bunch of stuff changing in terms of roles and team composition. Seeing a lot of really neat stuff come out. What do you think the new patches have done for the balance between offense and defense? I know for a long time people were saying the defense side of things was lacking and difficult. Do you think the new patches have changed how easy it is as a defender, or do you think it's made it more difficult, or do you just not agree with that sentiment in the first place?
I think it's different. The main changes I see are that the chasing is a little bit more viable with the Pathfinder sort of jumper pack style chasing. You can kind of get more burst speed out of that, but at the same time, shrikes are now, at least currently, that the shrikes don't really work very well. So that's actually a change I enjoy. I actually think it's a cooler game style to have people chasing in an armor rather than a shrike. So that's just different. I don't know whether I would say it's easier or harder now. Defense. The other thing I've seen is the Hoff play now is pretty viable with the new Doombringer and Super Heavy. That seems to be a fairly important role now, and a good Hoff can do a lot of work. And basically, if the LO is not able to clear, then he's just going to be able to splatter all the cappers as they come in. Then the other thing that I've seen change is with the Raider grenade nerf, the ability to only carry a couple grenades and reach at the same time, which you pretty much need to counter Hoffs. You pretty much can only have 2 grenades, and their radius and impulse is lowered. So Raider capping is kind of out, which makes Pathfinders kind of the new thing for capping. And so in that metagame environment, snipers are stronger because they can kill Pathfinder in 2 shots. So I guess those are the biggest changes I've seen in O versus D.
From a chaser's perspective, I would say that things are, well, kind of like what David Bowie was saying, things are definitely different, and I don't think enough time has been spent playing this patch yet to figure out if things are better or worse. The jumper pack on the Pathfinder is really nice. You can get going from 0 to 200 in about, 3 or 4 seconds with an impact nitron. And the fact that you can now carry 3 of those impact nitrons means if you use one to boost, you got 2 chances to knock the flag out of their hands. What I don't really like is the AR nerf, the fall-off damage nerf. I think it's already difficult enough to hit someone very far away where you don't need to add the extra handicap of the bullets doing less damage to targets further away. What I would really like to see is, because it's clear that Hi-Rez wants to nerf ARs and maybe make the game more projectile-based, like with discs or bolts or something like that. So what I would really like to see is a better way to gain speed, kind of like in Tribes 2, where if, your flag was taken, you could just disc and be right on the on the capper's ass, and then have it more about hitting those clutch disc shots or those clutch bolt shots, because I think that's a lot more exciting to watch than watch someone just getting chain hoard out.
Certainly agree. We have somebody else joining us. His name is There Is No Source. He was on some previous podcasts once before. Go ahead and say hello.
Hello.
There is no. Maybe he stepped away then. What about you, Utah? You were kind of quiet through most of that. What do you think about the offense versus defense balance?
I enjoy the new the new technician thumper, but I noticed in pub games, there's 7 technicians all turtling with turrets and thumper, and it just becomes impossible. So I think it's still viable class, for scrims, but it's going crazy in the pubs. They need to add a class limiter.
Yeah, the new ones can definitely be crazy strong. So what about, we were seeing some heavy offense in some pickup games that I've seen, and a little bit in some of the competitive matches. How do you think HO or true LO is, actual light armored offense or heavy offense? How do you guys think that's stacking out in the current maps?
In terms of, actual light offense, I think Infiltrator is the only viable one right now. I don't really see Pathfinder LO at all, and I don't think it would work very well. But I have seen a lot more Infiltrator since the patch. The addition of the disc, I think, makes them stronger fighters in certain situations. It's kind of a toss-up whether the disc or chain is better, I think, depending on the situation. But I do see a lot more Infiltrator LO now, and I think it is viable to maybe have one of them. I don't know about 2. I think Raiders are still the best all-around LO, though they're actually medium. Heavy offense, I think, is a situational thing. I think the MIRV spamming can be very effective if the enemy's running a heavy deployable strategy. I was in a pug last night with this guy Devastation, who is just really clutch with hitting those MIRV shots, and he would stand on a hill, and as I was running the flag back home, he would actually kill all my chasers with perfectly timed MIRV shots, and it was a really cool thing. The way he would just cover for me the whole way home. So I think it's being played around with, and it's certainly a lot more viable than it was before the patch. But I'm not sure if it'll ever become standard, just because the heavy offense can't fulfill the roles of escorting, e-grabbing, killing returning cappers, as well as something like a Raider or Infiltrator can.
Nice. Okay, that kind of leads into another question, and I think There Is No would be able to answer this pretty well. Talking about the situational use of the MIRV launcher and whatnot, how do you guys feel of those niche roles of the Infiltrator, or it's only good for infiltrating type of thing, the Technician is mostly good for base defense type of stuff? Do you think those very specific roles are good for competition, or do you think it's detrimental?
It depends on how the competition sort of evolves, whether the game becomes very much figured out, and people start figuring out these very specific sort of counterplays and roles which people can play in, or whether it goes back to more the way it was in Tribes 2, or it was more skill-based rather than role-based. If it does end up being that certain classes of it, they're unique to a specific role and they're very, very strong at that role, then you'll get very, very specific evolution of what loadouts people take to do even sort of sub-jobs within that role. But at the moment, because there's still a lot of sort of commonality between weapons and loadouts, there's still quite enough sort of variation for people to kind of do a lot of different things with the one class. So I'm not sure how it's going to evolve. It really depends on what we see in later patches and whether we get a whole bunch of new weapons, how the balance gets adjusted in the future at this stage.
You tend to do that to these podcasts, make everyone go silent and, huh.
Well, what he says makes sense. I completely agree with that. Right now, it seems like there's somewhat of a balance between, just having people that are good on your team versus having people that can fill roles or the roles that you need. But it seems like, if your team is better than the other team, I mean, this kind of sounds like a stupid thing to say, but like, just if your skill is better, it doesn't really matter what roles you have on your team as long as you have defense and cappers and offense. I think it would be interesting to see that change, but I also am kind of wary of it because then, it's just like all the best players on one team versus like the best infiltrator plus the best, I don't know, sniper, whatever.
Yeah, I think the one maybe exception is that I think the snipers are basically something you have to have in the current metagame, and they seem to have just a very big role. I guess mainly because Pathfinder capping is the way to go right now. But I do feel that having a very good sniper is kind of crucial to your success as a team right now.
Yeah, that's a very good example of that specific class role. The sniper is primarily an anti-light class. It's very good at knocking out the lights who, go in through the stand, have to grenade jump, or they take a disc and they're on maybe 300, 400 health on the way back, so they only need one sniper shot to kill them. They're not quite as good against medium cappers. They're still okay, but their primarily role is to discourage light capping almost completely. Or Pathfinder capping, because infiltrators can always do their ninja stuff.
Yeah, I'd say...
So the snipers are... If you put a sniper on your team to stop people using Pathfinders, that's almost the reason you have him on your team. He does a whole bunch of other stuff as well, but he has that tactical role. That strategic role as well as a tactical one.
Right. I also think the sniper is important for his ability to spot the incoming cappers from several angles from his perch. Another thing that is now evolved sort of to counter that is that often a lot of teams will have one of their light offense just dedicated to, as the capper picks up the flag, just hunting the sniper and distracting him so the capper can get away. And I think perhaps another reason for the lack of medium capping you see now is that because chasers got a bit of a boost, mediums are kind of sort of screwed either way because they either have to do some thumper jumps or disc jumps to get enough speed to outrun the chasers, and by doing so that puts them back at 700 or 800 health after they grab a flag, in which case they're just 2 sniper shots from death.
I agree.
I actually just remembered something. Utah, you were, I think, /V kind of posted itself as the group of ragtag /virgins, if I recall the verbiage correctly. But as what I understand, you actually have some really high-skilled players from other games on the team. Is that correct?
From what I understand, Great Stalin and Harblue, they played a little bit in the TF2 competitive scene, but from what I heard, they weren't especially amazing, and I'm not even sure how TF2 really carries over into Tribes Ascendant like a great deal, but yeah, I guess.
I just wanted to double check those couple things. So what about arena play? I know there's going to be some arena mode coming out here with Hi-Rez putting it out and kind of talking a little bit about it. Do you guys think there's going to be a lot of competitive play focusing on that, or would you guys think about maybe running a team into arenas?
I think it'll be a very interesting game mode. It'll certainly appeal to a lot of the EPs out there. Everyone's going to want to be the number one arena guy, and so they can boast on the internet about it. But I think it'll be an interesting game mode, and definitely help people with their dueling skills a lot, even if they're just playing it casually.
Well, I think that, to me, Tribes is always and always will be a CTF game. That being said, Team Rabbit 2 and Tribes 2 was one of the funnest game modes I've ever played, as well as the arena mode. So I would I would really like to see those in this game. It's just fun to play. And CTF isn't for some people. Some people don't want to rely on their teams because, they can't do teamwork or think they're the best or whatever. We've all run into those people. And I think that ultimately for Tribes 2 to succeed, it needs to be as popular as possible and appeal to as many people as possible, especially because it's free to. And if we add more or if they add more game modes or make things that casual people are likely to like, then I think that can only be good.
Yep. I'm really looking forward to if they introduce Team Rabbit too. I think particularly because I'm the sort of esports promoter guy, that mode now I've had a bit more time to study the sort of various formats that the game can be played in and have a look at the spectator mode and how things might work out with the new graphics. The huge advantage Team Rabbit 2 has is there's one flag, and that means the camera doesn't have to be jumping between two. So you can always focus where the action is. It's just like a football match. And I think that's a lot more conducive to sort of smooth, competitive, spectacular games for people to watch. I'm not sure how well it'll do as far as skill and a high level competition, but for watching, I really want to see how that pans out. Arena mode as well, I'm not sure. I haven't really seen many games played, so I can't tell sort of how that'll pan out. But I think it's got potential, and I think for Tribes, I'm not sure it's going to be quite like some of the other esports games we have, where maybe in Street Fighter or StarCraft, the format that's played competitively is going to be the same, even the same sort of game mode that's played casually. So we might see maybe people learning in Team Deathmatch and Arena, and only really moving into say Team Rabbit 2 when they've kind of, because I mean that requires a lot of skill just to even throw the flag around without it just becoming this giant. Well, I'd say a naughty word, but I won't.
Mess. All right. I really also would not mind seeing Team Rabbit 2. It was absolutely crazy and fun and all those sorts of things. Kind of jumping around a bit, I am sorry, but I know somebody had mentioned earlier about individual player skill on a team versus the strategic team skill level type of thing. What do you think about some of these other strats emerging that we've seen? I've seen it in Pugs more often now. Tau's definitely been the one popularizing it, like the 7 offense or the just all offense focus fire. Do you think that's really strategy driven, or is that more player skill driven thing? And do you think that's a good idea for the game, or the diversity of strategies and whatnot?
Well, I think that specific strategy, while it is obviously a strategy, it's a strategy based on player skill. Like, they put 7 on offense because they know that they can win standoffs, because they know that they can, kill better than the other team, because they just have like a lot of really good players. And I think it is awesome that they do that, because that's like a team realizing its strengths, realizing what it can do with those strengths, and doing it. I don't necessarily know that it's going to be the metagame or anything like that, because Tau is a bunch of really skilled players that can pull that off, and that's something that you absolutely need to run that kind of strategy. But I don't know. I think it's really cool. I really like that they did that.
What about in general? Do you see any other benefits of a strong player strength based as opposed to a team based strategy?
Are you asking me?
Anyone?
I guess a good example of that would be if you've got an absolutely incredible sniper. You can kind of rely on him to... Yeah. I did notice that I haven't actually managed to watch through all the matches because I got home late from work last night and watched the first 2. Yes, Seth kind of killed a lot of people, and in another match I watched, the sniper sort of really carried the team. So if you have that incredibly good sniper, you can rely on him to shut down quite a few strategies for your opponent. I'm not sure whether that's true of many other classes. I suppose, if you have someone who's amazingly good with like the LMG or the chain gun, who can really rip people apart when they're going out or coming in, that can give you some options. But I think for the most part, it's still you can't rely on one person. In an 8v8 game, there's just too many, or 7v7.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that probably more than anything, a sniper is the one that can sort of do a lot for his team just on his own. But even he requires somebody else to pick up the flags when he kills the cappers. But like, an amazing capper, I think, can do a lot for a team. But if he doesn't have any clear, and he shows up with 4 defenders and a bunch of deployables, doesn't really matter how good he is. Nothing he can do about that. An amazing Hoff or an amazing dueler, I think, can also do a tremendous amount for a team. But again, I think they can't carry the whole team by themselves, sort of in the way a sniper can.
Nice. I am running low on questions. Anybody else have something that they would like to bring up about it? Something that you guys have seen crop up that you want to talk about?
I don't know if it's something that you've already discussed on your show, but I thought an interesting discussion would be about sort of what would be the changes that should be made for specifically comp play, not for pubs.
Yeah, that would actually be really good to talk about because we're getting closer and closer to private server implementation. I believe there's some Euro tournaments popping up. So we're getting closer to the time where we need to figure out exactly what a competitive rule set would be, and I believe Europe already plays underneath certain gentleman rules such as no infiltrator capping, no orbital or tactical strikes, things along those lines. Is there anything, like orbital strikes in particular, I say would be a good starting point. Do you think those really belong in a competitive 8v8, or do you want those clutch moments to be put more in the hands of the players?
Personally, I think that orbitals and tacticals have no place at all in competitive play. And if I could only remove one thing from the game, it would be those. Just because I think it's not really fun to play in or watch when every attempt at a flag cap is just a bunch of orbital strikes spammed on the flag stand. And you see so many times in which an offense and a defense just do this amazing coordinated work to get the flag all the way back home, and then just some random orbital strike comes in. And it feels like it doesn't really take skill to pull off at all. And it easily counters like a tremendous amount of skillful play by the other team. And it's just, I think watching someone go and get a clutch nitron and like awesome return, or just like that sort of just really sweet plays by players is so much more interesting to watch and fun to play in than just having, tactical strike spam every time a flag cap's about to happen. I would say if I could. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Would you be happier if one of the things that we'll probably get is the option to switch to sort of team currency rather than individual? And in that setting, you could probably up the costs of both those abilities to quite high levels. So instead of sort of every cap being able to be assisted by, an orbital or a tactical, maybe you might be able to afford one or two of them a game, maybe one orbital and a couple of tacticals. Would you feel that would be acceptable in competition?
I think that might be okay. I think maybe even more important than the cost is just the cooldown, sort of a team shared cooldown. So you wouldn't see more than one coming in at a time. Because that's when it just gets really silly. And there's times you'll see like literally 5 tactical strikes in a row on the 2 flags that are about to be capped. And I think that's just silly. But I think it'd be interesting. I'd want to see what it's like, because I think it's fun having the idea of that like hero play. How every team's thinking, how are we going to use our one orbital that we have or whatever. But it's such like at that point you've got this one ability that just becomes so powerful that I don't know if that's as interesting of a gameplay situation.
I suppose the strength is the trade-off between those vehicles, if vehicles remain a strong part of the game, and the base defending and upgrading if that actually comes into its own. At the moment, the problem is there's not really much competition, because there's one person buying his Shrike, nobody's bothering with the base, so everyone's just got money to spam on and orbital strikes. But if they work it out so it is a serious choice between the 3 options, it becomes more of a skill thing and a style thing rather than just everybody does it because it's the only thing you can be bothered doing.
Exactly. I think that would just be a better direction for competitive play. It's one of the few things that I feel very strongly about. I think like the idea of not spawning in the loadout, I think could go either way. I think it's actually sometimes kind of cool to have those sort of defined roles that people spawn in. And the generator play, I don't actually know that it's all that interesting, really. And then with the strikes, I feel like the recent nerfs to them have made them a little less ridiculous, at least compared to where they were before the patches. So I'd say the only thing I feel very strongly that would need to be out of comp play would be the tactical strikes. Everything else, I think, might be able to be sort of patched, buffed and nerfed to balance properly.
What about you, Utah? Do you have any sort of plans or hopes for the competitive rule set?
Yeah, I have to agree on the orbital strikes. They are frustrating. My first couple of pickup games we played, that what David Bowie explained happened a lot, where they would just spam them again and again. So I agree on that point. Yeah, generator play, it seems like it's ignored a lot, unless it's like Bella Omega. So I'm not sure if it's even worth having. Other than that, I don't know. I played my first scrim, and I just been playing pickup games, so I'm not terribly well versed in the competitive world. I just go fast.
Gotta go fast. How about Blinkston? Is there any particular pet peeve that you wouldn't mind seeing nixed in a competitive format?
As a defender, absolutely the orbital strikes or tactical strikes or whatever. Like, there's like 4 times a day where the capper will get the flag home, get tacked on the way in, then you go pick it up, and you're 2 feet away from the flag, then you get tactical striked, and then that just happens 3 more times in a row, and some guy walks in going incredibly slow and gets the return. And that's just when I just want to, punch myself in the face, because it makes me terribly, terribly angry.
Yeah, also I feel it's a very lazy way to clear. I think LO is one of the most difficult positions to play effectively against a good defense, and I think it's cool seeing that those kind of duels between the defense and the LO. But sometimes kind of the lazy way to clear is you just put a tactical strike on the stand right as the capper comes in, and it's just like incredibly easy to pull off. So that's just another example of why I think it's kind of silly.
Yeah, and especially because of the map sizes, you don't even need the LO to be the ones dropping the orbital strikes from every map, and Kata included. You can drop it straight from your base.
Yep.
Yeah, those are always very frustrating. In terms of... actually, no, it's probably not so good of a question.
Just an interesting note. There used to be an issue with Crossfire where you couldn't target tactical strikes onto the ship. So it wasn't actually possible to, unless you had a really, really good angle, to target the flag with a tactical strike. They fixed that bug, so it's now possible to do it. But I actually quite like that, how you couldn't really aim at the flag stand with a tac strike or an orbital strike. You had to hit someone in the field. Do you think that would be another idea?
Yeah, I remember that. It was like the only way you could do it was if you got up sort of high and you'd have to aim at a spot directly below the flag stand in order to hit it. It definitely was harder to pull off. Though again, I think in any kind of high level of play, everyone would just learn that spot. They would just know, okay, aim between the 2 palm trees and you'll hit the stand. So I don't know if that would solve it in the end, but it would definitely be a little bit better.
Rather than re-implementing a bug, you'd obviously implement it so maybe there was just an area around the flag, for the full height of the map that you can't target with the strikes.
Right. The other interesting thing, I don't know if it would change if strikes are removed, is the additional sort of turret and deployable play. So right now there's no point in putting out 12 turrets for one team or something because one strike will take them all out. But if you were to see the strikes removed, it makes me wonder if you would see more just mines, turrets, force fields just scattered around everywhere in a big enough area that the LO couldn't clear them instantly either. Now that if the strikes were gone, to not be able to wipe them all out in one fell swoop.
Yep.
I would like to see that, especially because it'll encourage more of the, like we were saying earlier, the different roles to come out. Because if without strikes, I think that would definitely increase the feasibility of some of the heavy classes. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Because heavies are very vulnerable because they're slow to move out of the stand, and then if they do move off the stand to avoid the strike, they have a lot of trouble getting back before a capper might arrive. I think it also again might make the generator play a little bit more important because you'd probably see a little more deployable action.
Definitely, and with the increased deplorables, I think the generator play would be more important. We talked earlier about the spawning naked, basically, is what people have been calling it. What do you think would be a strong loadout for that? Make it too strong and people don't care about the generator still, make it too weak and it's impossible to get your generators up. What do you think would be a good style loadout to use in case if the generator goes down, now you can't spawn in a loadout situation?
Well, if you limited those niche roles like sniper heavies, then people will definitely take notice. I'd say soldier would be a pretty average class to load out on.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think, maybe a soldier with like the disc and, I don't know, the pistol or something like that, and without a really good pack, without like or the perks, without able to get like potential energy or egocentric or something that allows them to cap, then you'd see, cappers would sort of have to have an inventory station.
Yep. That was actually quite a good idea where someone said, rather than limiting the class, you spawn in your class loadout, but your pack isn't activated and your pack and perks aren't activated, and you can't use and you don't have any grenades, sorry. So you just have your 2 basic weapons, and that's it.
Yeah, and I think one thing that would change is right now it's so easy just to press K to deal with any situation. You're getting harassed as a sniper, whatever, just press K. You need to get home really quickly to help defend, press K. And there's almost no cost involved in it. And there's that 4-second time that you're not in the field, but it's like players almost just use it to warp home. So I think if there was some penalty involved, then that might change things a bit.
Definitely agree with that one. Not sure, though, making a penalty onto the suiciding, it may hinder things too much to make it feasible, but it's always, we're in beta test, it's always good.
Yeah, I sort of meant more of the idea of you had to have the generator up, the inventory station thing, so that way, yes, you could suicide home, but if your generator was down and you didn't have an inventory station up, then you were gonna be sort of limiting yourself. You kind of have to be more aware of those things before you press K.
Okay, I see that. That's definitely a good point. Well, unless anybody else has any good points, I'd say it'd be a good time to cut this off. Anybody else have anything?
I just want to say that Utah, you had a really sick MA on me on Arx Novena, and I thought that was totally awesome, man. Good job.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, echo that. I've had a lot of fun. The last couple days, Utah and Seth have been showing up in the pickup games, and it's been a lot of fun playing with them and getting to pick them for the teams whenever I'm captain. Seth is now like the first pick in Pugs, because everyone's kind of recognized his skill, and it's fun when you get just destroyed by a player to then get to have them on your team later.
All right, well, that's awesome. Good to hear that you guys are at least getting along, and now to foster some of that internet hatred. Utah, call them out for the next grudge match. Go.
It'll probably be next year, right before the Super Bowl, Shazpod 2013.
All right, man, we'll be there.
Awesome. Thank you guys for showing up.
No problem. Even if it was a bit late.
Yeah, thanks for having us. I think what you're doing for the community is totally awesome. And if there's any way I can support it with my stream or by pouring myself out through Reddit, just let me know.
Definitely will do. Thanks, everyone, for showing up. This is Tweak with Shazpod. Thanks for listening.